Lesson number 21. Deeper thoughts of life and death. Take thou man's death away from him in this new day of man. Give him eternal life in me by knowing me in him. From the Divine Iliad. We again repeat God's words as they were given to me in my instructions regarding the giving of his new message to newly comprehending man of this electric age. When saying, take thou this death away from him, our Father-Mother means that man is eternal and cannot die. He does not mean that bodies do not die, for all creating things grow, decay, generate, and radiate as they sequentially appear, disappear, and reappear. Life and death are but opposite expressions of the same thing, an eternal continuity of repeated interchange with each other. For life could not live without death, and conversely, death could not die without life. It might clarify God's meaning of his word if the above were paraphrased as follows. Take thou man's ignorance and fear of death away from him, and give him knowledge of eternal life in him. Make him to know that he lives in me and never dies, for I am he. In me there is no death. Make him to know that life in bodies is but the multiplied motion of my concentrative thinking, and death is but a division of that motion as my thinking decentrates to find rest in me. And when both life and death are added together, their total is but the zero of rest in me. Reduced to its utmost simplicity, this means that life and death are but two opposite directions of motion. Life is the generative direction of concentrative thinking, and death is the radiated direction. What could be more simple? Our bodies are but wave cycles of motion. Our bodies simulate eternal life by the eternal repetition of life-death cycles, but our bodies are not our persons, our beings, or our divine selves. That is the thing God wants the New Age of man to know. Past ages have feared death because they did not know its meaning. The dread of death is born out of the belief that man dies when his body no longer functions, and that death of his body is his end. It is unbelievable how many intelligent people of today actually believe that way. In our acquaintances is the very wealthy, successful, intelligent, kindly man who lives life generously and abundantly, who said, when you are dead, you're dead, and that's the end of you. And he sincerely believes it because he thinks of his body as being his self. He actually believes that his intelligence is within his brain, that his brain is mind, and that his own individual self has no connection with any other self or with the universal mind. If life and death are but motion, what then is motion? If we would know what our electric bodies are and how they are extended from our spiritual selves to simulate ourselves by fast and slow two-way motion, we should not only know what electricity is, but how it works. Also, if we would know how to control our bodies, which we ourselves have extended from the spiritual souls of us because of our desire and our will, we should better know the relation of the intelligence which is within each body to control it and the body itself. This is the knowledge which will mark a new day in all social, industrial, scientific, and medical practices. The fact that our physical bodies are but moving extensions of our spiritual selves has but begun to enter into human consciousness. It will affect you personally to your great advantage in the measure of your ability to comprehend it. Just as the visible tree is made to appear out of its invisible soul seed by increasingly violent motion, and continues to grow into a bigger and better tree as long as the violence of motion can be multiplied into more violent motion, and then disappear as multiplied motion is reversed by dividing it, so has invisible man been made visible by fast motion. The particular point I wish to emphasize is that the whole intellectual world must revise its concepts regarding human bodies and the practice concerning them, medically and otherwise. We have regarded them as ourselves instead of instruments for manifesting ourselves. We have been mightily misled into treating effect with effect instead of with cause. We have magnified the importance of motion, which is the sole ingredient of our bodies, to the exclusion of considering the source of that motion in the seed pattern of our souls. When we know that a single thought can change the polarity of our entire body toward either life or death, likewise changing its entire chemistry toward increasing alkalinity or acidity to strengthen or weaken it, or can change the shape of every corpuscle of matter in the entire body in the direction of either growth or decay, the medical profession will radically change both its principle and practices in dealing with the ailments of bodies. Likewise, you and I and our neighbors who are seeking happiness, prosperity, and great achievement in life will at last find that we must cease setting up insurmountable obstacles in our business or social lives, which each of us individually and the whole world nationally is constantly doing, thus preventing the happiness, prosperity, and power we all long for. A new viewpoint. Let us therefore look upon all bodies for what they are instead of what we think they are. Bodies are but waves of motion, pulsing waves of motion, which increase in violence to express life and decrease to express death. Bodies of matter in motion have been man's reality for ages. The time has come when the unfolding human race must know the unreality of moving bodies and the reality of their source of motivation. Reality can never be in motion, for motion ceases, but the stillness from which motion extends is as eternal as the silence from which sounds extend. Reality must be eternal in order that it to be real. Go back, therefore, to first principles as outlined in the first 10 pages of Lesson 9. Review them carefully until the conviction is embedded in you that the undivided light of mind knowing is the reality from which thought imaginings extend and retract in pulsing sequence, to make believe that their pulsing electric motions are the ideas which their motion simulates. Meditate upon this thought until you thoroughly comprehend that all motion is making believe that it is something which it really is not. Let Figure 8 assist you in realizing that you are, when you can so far forget your body, that you are the undivided, unchanging, invisible mind of creation. Then let Figure 9 picture for you what your mind does when it thinks what it knows by taking its one whole idea apart into millions of seemingly separate ideas, and dividing each of those separate ideas into pairs of sexed opposites. Then realize that these sexed opposites forever resist their division, by eternally attempting to avoid their unbalanced opposition, but never succeed. This will enable you to picture creation for what it is, a desire of man to create moving bodies in the form of mind imagining, to make believe that the moving bodies are the mind imaginings. This is accomplished by projecting them from the stillness of their source, followed by an equal desire to return those bodies to their stillness by cessation of motion. If you will think of all these moving forms in Figure 9, which emerge from the formlessness of the mind universe of rest, and then disappear into it, you will much better comprehend the pulsing heartbeat of creation. In simple words, creation is but an electric record of mind imagining, but we should not be deceived into thinking that the record is that which created it. If you will then realize that every action in nature starts from a point of rest, seeks a point of rest, and returns to a point of rest, you will better comprehend the idea of the emergence of matter from space, and the subsequent swallowing up of matter by space. Likewise, you will better understand the pulsing of the universal heartbeat, which concentrates and decentrates as thought power multiplies and intensifies electric tensions, while lessening desire divides and releases them. Likewise, you will better understand the mechanics of motion as the concentrative half of the universal pulse compresses large volumes of low potential into small volumes to create visible solids, then goes into reverse to expand the compressed solids into invisible space. Also, you will more clearly visualize the universal heartbeat as a universal pump which compresses and expands simultaneously and sequentially to seemingly divide the undivided, to change the changeless, to give measure where no measure is, and to condition the unconditioned. Also, you will better realize that the energy which motivates all motion is in desire of mind to express idea in moving forms of idea, and not in the moving forms which result from desire. Likewise, you will discover in your meditation that desire itself is divided into the positive desire to manifest life through multiplied motion, and the negative desire to seek rest to manifest death through cessation of motion. If you will meditate long upon this thought, you will realize that every desire to multiply your power to think concentratively is followed by a desire to rest from the fatigue of that concentration. Also, that if you work actively all day, you want to lay down and rest at night. Then when you rest all night, you are reborn with new life so that you can again work all day. In the preceding paragraph, I have described the whole principle of life and death, and how each borns the other and is reborn from the other. Let us review it. You begin your day of manifesting life from a point of rest and sleep. Your day is filled with positive actions in building the product of your thinking. The energy which you have generated during the night while at rest is gradually radiating during the day until you have to stop at a point of rest because you cannot generate more energy. You have gradually grown so tired that you again have to lie down to rest in a sleep for the night. Vigorous action and desire for work in the morning manifests the life principle. Relaxing and laying down to sleep at night from fatigue manifests the death principle. During the night of death, the body is constantly generating to born life from death at the dawn of a new day. During the day of life, the body is constantly degenerating to born death from life when the night of life comes. To live is to polarize idea. To die is to depolarize it. You are forever dying as you live and forever living as you die. Every pulse beat of your heart manifests both life and death. Postulates and axioms concerning life and death. The direction of motion which manifests life is the inward radial direction which forever accelerates as it approaches its center of gravity. This is the positive direction which multiplies the power of light waves by compressing them into hot, solid spheres. It is the centripetal direction of concentrative thinking, which is the cause of gravitation. It is the direction of polarization which charges the body with increasing vitality. See Figure 48. The direction of motion which manifests death is the outward radial direction which forever decelerates as it expands into space. It is the negative direction which divides the power of light waves by expanding them into the coldness of space. It is the centrifugal direction of decentrative thinking, which is the cause of radiation. It is the direction of depolarization which decharges the body by ever lessening its vitality. See Figure 49. Life is in the stillness of the magnetic light of the universal equilibrium. Life is manifested in matter by dividing the universal equilibrium into pairs of opposite conditions, which we call life and death. Life and growth and generation are manifested in matter by gravitation. Death and decay and degeneration are manifested in matter by radiation. Life in bodies means increasing power of gravitational charge to pull inward from within to increase their polarization. Increasing polarization means increase of electrical potential. Increase of electric potential means increase of the power of positive and negative poles to pull away from each other. Death in bodies means increasing power of radiational discharge to thrust outward from within to decrease their polarization. Decrease of polarization means decrease of electric potential. Decrease of electric potential means decrease of the power to polarize. That which man calls life and death is but increasing and decreasing motion. Increasing motion causes the gradual formation of polarized spheres, which are two-way extensions from their equators. See Figure 50. Decreasing motion causes the spheres to withdraw into their equators by gradual depolarization. Figure 51. All bodies are electrical recordings of mind thought. Mind thoughts pulse in concentrative, decentrative sequences, which we call cycles. Life and death of bodies are but cyclic recordings of mind thoughts. Thoughts come and go, and life and death record their coming and their going in electric bodies which appear, disappear, and reappear forever. Summary. And that is all that life and death is. When we can think of our bodies as just transient states of motion, which are but dramatizing the thought imaginings of our eternal selves, the more we can realize we ourselves are universal mind, creating bodies for ourselves, yea, creating the universal body for the universal oneself. This is good to know, but that does not mean that our human emotions are to be voided when bodies of our loved ones cease to continue their physical existence with us. When we grieve for loss of human companionship, we are fully justified in so doing, for no amount of knowledge should dehumanize us to the extent that grief should be reasoned away by knowledge. The antidote for grief, however, is knowledge. When we know that we cannot die, and that desire for body still continues forever in the eternal self of man, and that a new body will polarize from that desire just as surely as dawn follows night, we will then have an enrichment for our grief through knowledge instead of misery and hopefulness due to ignorance of our immortality. The confusion which has made death so tragic and terrible has arisen from the belief that sensing is both thinking and knowing. A most common expression regarding anyone whose senses have ceased vibrating for any reason, such as sleep or anesthesia, is that such as one is unconscious. There is no such a condition as unconsciousness. What one really means is that one's brain has ceased sensing because of being depolarized. Mind is always conscious. Mind always knows and desires whether the body is asleep for a night or for the longer interval of acquiring a new body. The mind of one can always become one with the mind of another, because they are one in essence and vary only as to the state of the respective unfolding, which is commonly termed individuality. When anyone asks the age-old question, can I contact my father or other loved one who has passed on, they really mean, can my body contact their bodies? Can my senses contact their senses? Can I ask them questions about whether they're happy or about business problem? People who ask such questions do not think things through. The one who has passed on has not passed on. He still is, as he has always been, in the undivided universe of mind. But he has had a sensed electric body which belongs to the divided universe of change. When he got rid of that electric wave body, the electric sensing which belonged to it disappeared with it, except for the pattern of thoughts and experiences which become permanently recorded in his soul and seed. The senses are electric. They will not vibrate in discharged or depolarized body, just as an electric bulb will not light from a dead storage battery. Mind can always contact mind, for all knowing is universal, but vital, polarized bodies cannot contact devitalized, depolarized bodies. This is too early a stage in these lessons to expand this idea further at this point, for there is still much more preparation for higher concepts needed before the new thinking of higher concepts could be comprehended without too much strain. Suffice it now to say that communion between mind and mind, whether of man and man or man and God, will always be as it has always been, for the drama of creation is being played forever and forever. There is a plan and destiny in it, and you and I are actors in it, and God is the playwright. You and I are also the playwright when we know ourselves as undivided and unchanging, even though we need bodies to play the parts of the divided and the changing. Communion of mind and mind is in the timeless language of the light of all-knowing. We shall talk about this in future lessons when we quite thoroughly understand that there is something beyond the sensing of bodies which has no need of bodies. Just as there are inventions to come as yet undreamed of, so likewise there are mental powers to unfold which are as yet undreamed of. The cosmic age now dawning is a far step in the unfolding of that in man which transcends his body. Conclusion. The following words of the Father-Mother given in his message for the cosmic age of man will be food for your deep meditation while awaiting further unfoldment of the glory which is man. Again I say, I am the soul of my universe of created things. Within my being is desire for manifesting my being. Desire in me is soul in me. That which is soul in me desires to manifest in form through light. Light extendeth from soul in me, and returneth to soul in me. The extension and returning being two seeming lights of me. Again I say, I am the seed of my unfolding, refolding universe. Within my light all formless seed of planned idea are enfolded in my being at rest in me. Again I say, all things extendeth from me, and returneth to me. From me all things are born from seed of thought in me, and born again with each pulsation of my thinking. There is naught but birth in my imagining. There is no death in me, for ending and beginning are one in me. Naught but life reacheth out from me, and naught but life meeteth returning life for rebirth in me. Wherefore I say, ye must be born again, and yet again unto that infinity of mirrored reachings which is my imagining. Thus is my one idea continued endlessly and imagined formed of my thinking. Thus is my one idea reborn as many ones in the multiplying mirrors of my light, forever without end. Again I say, the mirrored multiples of my thought images are but reflections of my imagining. They are not me. From the Divine Iliad, page 152, The Secret of Light. End of lesson. Lesson number 22. The fact that our physical bodies are but moving extensions of our spiritual selves has but begun to enter human consciousness. All bodies are electric recordings of mind thoughts, quoted from Lesson 21. Knowledge makes you the master, not the servant of matter. The above quotations are repeated here because it is difficult to fully comprehend the oft-repeated statement that God is all, while an infinitely extended universe of suns, stars, and nebula illumine the heavens by the countless millions, and all about your countless millions of bodies of substantial matter, which you can weigh and feel and see with your own eyes, confront you with their own indisputable evidence of their reality. All our lives, for countless generations, we have been confronted with moving bodies and moving forces. Heat burns us, wind blows forcibly against our resisting bodies. We have pains and aches, hungers and fear of illness of our body and the bodies of our families and friends. Tempests come with floods and famines and droughts. We have always known a world of motion, of action, of events, of pleasure and catastrophe, with eras of peace suddenly broken by a devastating war. How in the very face of all we see and feel can we say, God is all, or God is love, or I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul, when we feel ourselves to be the helpless victims of a matter and motion environment which so relentlessly swirls us about in its whirlpool? Is it any wonder what people who are the servants of matter, motion, and environment feel that the universe of matter and motion is reality, and that things of the spirit are something to be hoped for, but are not dependable and certainly not real? Wherefore I say to you that you are the self-bound servant of matter, so long as you are self-bound, and furthermore I say to you that you are freed from its bondage only when you free yourself from your own senses. Just so long as your senses dominate your action, the world of matter and motion is your master, and you are its unwilling, happy slave. Why is this so? It is because your senses are the same electric vibration that your bodies are. Your body is not you. Therefore, your senses are not you. That means that your body is dominating your action. Your body is demanding that you work for it, that you give it what it wants, and the only thing it wants are more sensations, more vibrations, more motion, more possession of material things for the body, more emotions for the body. Freedom from slavery to matter and the conditions of matter begins with knowledge that the motion and matter of your body is not you. That is why I have so often told you that the supreme discovery of man is his self. Complete freedom comes only when you have actually come to know love. When you actually know what love is, you will not only know that God is love, but that you are love. When that day comes, you can then say, as Jesus said, and with as much authority, I and my Father are one. When that glorious day does come, you will have found the kingdom of heaven, for that is what Jesus meant when he said, Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. No man can have either prosperity, riches, power, or happiness, so long as he is but clay of earth, sensed clay of earth, bound by his body to forever work for his bodily needs. I have frequently said that material bodies simulate idea, but the forms of material bodies are not the idea they simulate. All the gold and treasures of the material world are not what they make believe they are. He who possesses much gold and thinks, therefore, that he has the happiness which the possession of gold simulates, has but the gold, for happiness is not in the gold. Likewise, he who possesses power over other men has not yet attained happiness, even though he has the power of kings. Energy is in mind, not in matter. When you think of matter as reality, ask yourself what matter can do without the desire of mind back of it. Even your little finger cannot move of itself until you will it to move. Desire is in the soul seat of all things. Desire of the Creator polarized the universe into pairs of opposite conditions which pump bodies into the appearance of existence motivated by desire. Will of mind created all things to dramatize idea of mind for just a little while. Then will of mind takes all created things back into the soul seat of its idea. They disappear, but will of mind still is. Will of mind creates all things by dividing idea and setting it into motion. Silence is divided to produce vibration for just a little while, and when those vibrations cease, silence still is. Will of your mind created your body. Desire in you, in your conscious soul, to have a body, polarized the light of mind thinking which extended your visible, vibrating electric body from its silence, from its stillness, and set it in motion to dramatize the idea of you for just a little while. But when its vibrations cease, you still are. This is what is meant by saying, God alone is, or I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul. The energy which created your vibrating body extended from you to create your body, but not from your body to create you. Some examples of soul energy. Science reverses the above stated principle by postulating that the energy which creates matter comes from matter. As previously stated, energy is presumed to be heated matter. I want to give you a few ideas upon this subject to take into deep and prolonged meditation over and over again until the realization of it gives you the feeling of such unlimited power that you could tear trees from the forest tree by tree or forest by forest, for your strength transcends that of the trees. It is mightier than that of the forest, as I once upon a time wrote down when deeply in the light. This feeling of unlimited power should be your normal state of mind, together with inner joyness. You should always come out of your meditation with that sense of tremendous power, the glory of self-expression, and a sense of supremacy over all material things. When communion with God gives you those God qualities, such a thing as failure or defeat, or fear or facing any task upon earth, should be entirely eliminated by your thinking. This is the kind of being you should be. Consider the following idea. An Italian laborer can lift 30 to 50 tons of coal in one day, a shovelful at a time. That feat takes an enormous amount of energy. Where did the energy come from which performed that amount of work? Most certainly it did not come by conversion of the food consumed by the labor into heat. The few pieces of bread, cheese, and onions consumed as food would not generate heat enough by any known process to lift 50 pounds, much less 50 tons. The food consumed is used to repair the body and replace its ever-dying corpuscles. Any residue is eliminated after normal replacements are completed. Any machine that man may make, which would lift 50 tons, would need at least 500 pounds of fuel. A man's body is a machine made for performing work just as a man-made machine is. Why is it that one machine needs 500 pounds of fuel converted to heat to lift 50 tons, while the human machine lifts 50 tons without needing any fuel at all? The answer is that the human machine is centered by the universal consciousness, which is the source of all power, from which man expresses power through desire to express power, even though he is not aware of the source of his power. The man-made machine has no such motivating source of power, so an electric current is extended to it from a generator, which consumes a tremendous amount of fuel. The machine made by man needs the electric current, while man is the electric current. His heartbeat is connected with the universal heartbeat. The same thing holds true of an elephant or any other animal which is motivated by soul will. The elephant can move 200 tons of logs in a day. The half a bale of hay consumed by it is likewise needed for replacement to its body. Consider likewise the fact that you can lift your own body 10,000 feet above the earth to the top of a mountain and back again in one day, because you are the universal electric current, and your power is limitless when you know it is limitless. If your power is limited, it is because you yourself have set limitations to it. Again I say, man is omnipotent when he knows his omnipotence. As a last example for your meditation, I would like to consider the tremendous energy expressed in the vegetable kingdom by the desire of the forest to lift it thousands of tons up above the earth. In the soul seed of the forest is the mighty desire to manifest its power. Every seed of the forest is centered by that soul desire to unfold the pattern of its idea. Desire in the seed is electric current in the seed expressing its desire by polarizing light to form its body. Those mighty tons of the forest are not lifted up by heat energy, but by the alternating heat and cold of sunlight and cool earth. These are the two conditions which desire in the seed makes use of to polarize stillness of equilibrium into vibrating bodies. Desire makes its own electrical current, for desire of soul is the polarized thought power which creates your body and all bodies. Therefore I say again to you that God is eternal, and naught else in the universe is eternal save God. Likewise, I say to you that you are eternal, as one with your Father in mind, when you know you are eternal. Also I say to you that you are the source of all energy with which you create the universal body. Furthermore, I say to you that you center and control every cell of your body. If you are balanced in the light, every cell of your body is likewise balanced. If your thinking is unbalanced, every cell of your body takes on that unbalance immediately, and not but balanced thinking can correct it. These lessons are leading up to the comprehension of the fact that God actually is all, and naught else exists. There is no material universe. Matter and motion do not exist. They appear to exist, but that appearance of existence is the great cosmic illusion. Even the sense which tells us that matter exists do not exist, for they are motion, and motion is merely the electric record of thought imagining. If the Creator suddenly stopped thinking and imagining, this entire universe of matter would suddenly disappear. For all motion and form are mind imagined, and all bodies are but electric thought pictures of mind imagining. The effect would be like the ending of a motion picture play where all physical effects cease when the creator of the play stopped thinking it into form and motion. This universe is entirely spiritual. God alone is. This universe is a mind universe from which thought-imagined bodies extend to simulate the idea of mind. This is a universe of rest from which motion seemingly springs. God's knowing is undivided and unchanging. God's thinking seemingly divides the one idea of God's knowing into many moving forms which seemingly change, as God's thinking seemingly change. The cosmic illusion: all bodies in all the universe are but waves of motion, which in themselves are only seeming. There is no such thing as motion or substance. There is but illusion, which we sense as motion and substance. If this statement amazes you, it is because you do not yet comprehend God's lenses and mirrors of light by means of which He creates the illusion. I will make this clear to you later on, but in the meantime your senses see very much motion in a cinema picture, yet you know that there is no motion there. You fully understand that the illusion of motion in the cinema picture is caused by a sequence of stills superimposed upon each other, each succeeding one being of a different pattern. If the pattern were all alike, there would be no illusions of motion. God's cinema changes pattern constantly because God's thinking changes constantly, but as changing only seems, likewise motion only seems. Later in these lessons, when you will know more about God's plan, you will understand His great illusion quite fully. Suffice it for now to say that everything which seemingly happens, unhappens simultaneously, to coin an expressive word for better understanding. You and every moving thing in nature are walking constantly into a mirror of yourself. As you appear, you simultaneously disappear, but the sequence of it deceives your human senses by giving a feeling of continuity which is not justified. When we arrive at the stage of further discussion of this phenomena, you will know it as the voidance principle, which is demonstrated in the law of voidance, which reads, "Every action is voided as it occurs, is repeated as it is voided, and is recorded as it is repeated." All effects of time, dimension, sound, and sequence of night and day, from which the illusion of time springs, are likewise the result of seeming motion. All this can be summed up in the simple statement that this seeming universe of many things, which seems to have countless changing moving forms, is a zero universe of rest which never exceeds zero in any of its effects, but only seems to do so. All of this seems incredible, I know, but as you gradually replace old conception of what constitutes reality, you will more and more comprehend that the light of mind is the only reality. You can readily understand that when all motion in your body ceases, it disappears, just as the whole universe would disappear if all motion ceased in the universal body. This idea is so beautifully expressed in the inspired words of our Father-Mother's message that I quote them here for your inspiration. "Without thinking, my one idea could not become many one ideas for my stage setting. Without motion, my cosmic play could not be played, nor could its actors be. Without change, my undivided one idea could not unfold. Without time, my drama of my creating universe could have no sequence. Without motion, time, change, and sequence, the unfolding of my mind imagining could have no measured space for its stage setting, no screen for its light projection. Therefore, see them as I imagine them, but know that they are but unfolding patterns of my knowing through my thinking. Know thou that therefore that time is not, nor are there moving things which change, nor is there life, nor death, nor cold, nor heat, nor good, nor bad in my universe of me." From the Divine Iliad. The one reality. Your body appeared from you. It appeared because you desired to manifest you. It appeared because you imagined it. God's body appears and disappears likewise. When you actually know that your mind and God-mind are one, you can then knowingly say, I and my Father are one. You will then know that your mind imaginings are creating the universal body. You will then know that your body is but a moving manifestation of desire in you, and whatever it is what you cause it to be. To the extent that you know God in your body is a manifestation of God's balanced rhythms, which are absolutely under your mind control. So likewise are all of your creations under your mind control. To the extent that you know God's oneness with you, you can extend your balance to other minds and give them control over their bodies and the bodies they create. What this knowledge means to you. The purpose of revealing these unknown facts of nature to you is to free you from the binding of matter, so that you will know what it is, and that what it seems to be, and control it instead of it controlling you. In the previous lesson, I have stated that one single thought could upset the chemistry and polarity of your body so completely that from being well you could become ill. You need no further proof to convince you that your body is the electric record of your thinking. If you work all day at something you very much dislike, you become very tired. The polarity of your body weakens in its power to divide the poles of your body cells. Even a little depolarization of all cells degenerates your body vitally, whereas you could work all day with intense joyousness and feel even more vitalized at the end of the day. The reason for this is because ecstasy is the continued, normal, unchanging state of God's mind, and the more you can reflect that ecstasy, the more you can keep the polarity of your body at its maximum generative power. Likewise, the divisions of desire for action, followed by an equal desire for rest, if properly balanced in your thinking and emulated in your body, will multiply your vitality tremendously. Multiplied vitality through the manifestation of love brings with it the fullness of physical expression. Every deviation from balanced expression of the love principle destroys bodies in the measure of that deviation. Violent anger, for example, can sow its deadly seed of cancer in a perfectly healthy body. A complete expression of the love principle, one which has in it the ecstasy of the light of mind, can destroy that seed and make the body whole. Likewise, it can destroy the seed of any infectious disease if that ecstasy can be imparted to another, as Jesus did when he made others to heal themselves through believing on him, even though they did not comprehend. It is a time that the medical profession fully comprehend that vitality and the power of generation are based upon increasing polarity, and that polarity responds immediately to desire and the balanced rhythm, which are an essential precedent to the joyousness which leads to ecstasy. Such joyous emotions increase the alkaline preponderance, which builds the body and lowers its acid content. Conversely, any cynical or unkind attitude, which does not express the love nature of God, lowers the polarity of every cell in the body and increases its acid content to a destructive percentage. To control matter, first control self. God said, "Behold, I am in all things, centering them, and I am without all things, controlling them." The nearer you can come to feeling yourself to be the center of stillness from which all things extend under your control, the more you can control your own body to its perfection of health, strength, and beauty. No matter what you must do in life, do it joyously. Whatever work it is, put love into it. If you do not put love into it, you will find love re-given to you by it. Love given out from you vitalizes you. Your polarization intensity increases instead of decreasing. If you do not like the work, it gives back to you what you give to it. You become fatigued and devitalized. Whatever situation you find yourself in, master it by giving love out of yourself to it, for that is the only way to master it. If you give aught but love, it will master you. There is no task which manifests God which is not beautiful if you make it so, for beauty is not in any task, it is in you. If you have to sweep the floor, do it gloriously. The floor must be swept. If it falls to you to sweep, to do it perfectly with love, and it will bless you. A joyous attitude of mind from love given out will prolong your date of maturing, lengthen your life, and make your thinking more brilliant and keen to the day of your passing. Joyousness is the great insulator from the toxins which arise from unbalanced thinking. New thinking for doctors, chemists, and metallurgists. When will the chemist ever learn that the same unbalanced conditions which cause violent explosions in his elemental compounds cause violent explosions in the human body under similarly unbalanced conditions? The chemist and metallurgist full well know that when they find pure cube crystals in any element, they find the stability of absolute balance in such crystals. And when they find distorted cube crystals, they full well know that unbalance and interchange between opposite pairs is the answer to that distortion. When will learned men of science, especially in medicine, understand that distortions due to unbalance in elemental bodies have the same basic causes that distortion in human bodies have? Human bodies are composed of these same elements, and both are electric recordings of mind thinking. Therefore, both must obey the same inviolate laws of balance. This principle of unbalanced interchange is being manifested upon a world scale by the greed, hate, and fears of neighbors by neighbor, and nation by nation, which have been released into this thought wave universe during the last 35 years. Just as one individual destroys his body by depriving it of the balanced polarity which love gives to body, so can nations or the whole world destroy its civilization by the various kinds of cancerous disintegrators which hatred breeds. With such hatred comes misgeneration, licentiousness, sadism, and infinite cruelties. The consequent loss of best blood of all nations depolarizes entire nations. During this last 35 years, even the moral of nations has decreased as their national polarity has decreased. The whole human race is facing its utter destruction as a whole, just as countless thousands of individuals are likewise doing by preferentially practicing the principles of greed for their own selfish ends. The world is not producing great men in the arts, great statesmen in government, or great leaders in any of the fields of human endeavor. Morality, integrity, and culture are at a low ebb, and honor is selling out to materialistic power seekers in every great nation of the world. This sick and unhappy age of man is what man made it. Whatever is, man's thinking has made it so. Today's civilization is the electric record of man's thinking. It is the record of sense desire, not spiritual ones. It is the record of fears and hatred in mankind, not of love. Much of the world will be self-destroyed, but not all of it. The first cosmic age of man is about to dawn into the light of its new day. Millions of bodies have been sacrificed, and million more will follow them into the grave. But love will come into the hearts of man, and the world will be transformed by love into another stage of its unfolding. That is why God sent his messages into the world for man's new day. And that is why God timed the delivery of the messages to the period of man's great self-chastening. And that is why you, who are ready for the message, are the seed to sow it in the hearts of legions of men before the end of the coming years of 1953, so that they in turn will bring into being the cosmic age of love before the last days of the spokal year of 1961 shall have ended. End of lesson. Lesson number 23. Confusion of ideas regarding spiritual and physical. Before entering the second 6 months of clarification of the relations between the light of the undivided magnetic universe of mind-knowing and the divided universe of mind-thinking, it is well to summarize and review the preparation for better understanding what the first 6 months have covered. In so doing, we will enter the second half of the study course with less confusion. There have been so many teachings based upon blind reasoning, so many theories based upon misunderstood mental and physical experiences, so many misconceptions of God and mind based upon sensing, that it is well to so vividly define these relationships from a scientific basis, so that all guessing will be entirely eliminated from future comprehension. The confusion of ideas and theories has arisen because of the impossibility of penetrating the veil of the invisible universe of mind and knowing through the sense of the body. The miscomprehension of man that he is thinking with his mind when he is only sensing with his body has given rise to the many misconceptions regarding both mind and body. That is why we hear so much that is popularly believed about such non-existent things and conditions as unconsciousness, conscious mind, subconscious mind, superconscious mind, the human mind, mortal mind, and other terms. These all arise from the misbelief that people are thinking when they are but sensing with their electric senses, which do not think and cannot know anything. The more you study page 137 to 144 until these first principles become a part of your knowing, the more you'll find yourself beyond the possibility of confusion. To these pages I would add a brief explanation of what causes such strange misconception. In the following lessons, I wish to stimulate your imagination with a different presentation of the difference between the spiritual and physical universe than you have ever heard before. I will do this in order to help you see the material universe as I see it, and the spiritual universe as God taught me to know it. The explanation of unconsciousness. There is no such condition as unconsciousness. When you are wide awake, your body is like the rippled surface of a lake. It is vibrant with waves. Those vibrating waves of motion are your electric senses. Those vibrating waves of motion are also your body. Give thought to this fact for just a moment. When you fully realize that your body is only electric waves of vibrant motion, you could not possibly think of your spiritual self, the being which is you, as being only waves of motion. You have inspired thoughts, deep emotion, glorious conception. You cannot possibly attribute your love of beauty, your family or friends, or your rapture of soul and contemplation of nature, or your inventive genius to waves of motion. Nor can you think of your knowledge as being only motion. Your vibrating senses do not know anything. They are not conscious of anything. All they can do is to sense other motion. In other words, all they can do is to feel. Senses are made to feel other motion, and that is all they do and nothing more. We say that we have 5 senses, that of seeing, tasting, smelling, hearing, and feeling. All of these are one. We feel differently with our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body, but they are just that one sense of feeling. And that is all that the whole physical universe is composed of. Just senses, sensed waves, sensed bodies of motion which feel other sensed bodies of motion. Moreover, no sensed body in the universe could even move if not told to do so by the intelligence which centers it, just as your car cannot move without desire extended to it by its centering intelligence. So likewise your body and all other bodies move only because of desire of the universal intelligence centering them, and not otherwise. And this is as true of the atom or stellar systems as it is true of the little finger of your body. Your senses are the intercommunicating system of your body. They all feel each other's motion. They are all extensions from a central switchboard, which is your brain. We have before stated that our brain does not know anything, for it also is but motion. Our senses send messages to each other through the brain. The senses of the whole universe likewise send messages to all the rest of the universal body through the centering nerve ganglion of each atom in the universe, for the entire universe is but one intercommunicating sensed body, each atom of it being centered by the universal intelligence which created it and is controlling it. For ages, people have thought that the sensing of one state of motion by another state of motion in one's body is thinking, instead of just merely feeling. Sensed feeling of motion by other motion has no relation to thinking whatsoever, for thinking is a manifestation of knowing, as sensed matter cannot know anything it cannot and does not think. If the senses of man could think or have knowledge, the human race would have had such discoveries as the flame, the wheel, or the boat ages and ages ago, for the senses could feel as well then as they do now, but thinking did not begin in man until the dawn of consciousness. Likewise, the senses of animals can feel as well, or even better than humans, but animals do not invent or discover laws, processes, nor principles in nature. Animals reason just as men do, but reasoning is but weighing one effect of sense experience with other effects which arise from our sense of observation. What we mistake for the mental action of thinking is purely an electrical awareness of motion. It is not consciousness at all, nor is conscious mind aware of motion, for it does not even know of it. Electric awareness is the awareness of one sense of motion by another sense of motion, and that electric awareness senses when motion ceases. The whole universe is wired from every point in the universe to every other point to transfer any sensation anywhere to every other where. If, for example, your body is in balance with its environment, which means if it is comfortable, you cannot sense the fact because the senses will not vibrate in an equilibrium. When there is no sensation, the nerve wiring of your body is dead. You must be unbalanced or uncomfortable before the senses will vibrate to tell all your other electrically sensed nerves that your body is cold. That electrical awareness then causes you to get a cold for your body, or if you are hungry or wet or fall out of balance, your senses will immediately vibrate, but not otherwise. A great deal of concentrative energy is expended to keep your sensed body vibrating sufficiently for you to be electrically aware of either your body or its sensation. That is what I mean by saying, when you are wide awake, your body is like the rippling surface of a lake, vibrant with wave motion. When you are asleep, either from fatigue or from anesthetic, your body is no longer vibrant with wave motion. The waves lie down to rest because they are depolarized. Wakefulness is a polarized condition which indicates strong electric current. You sleep when your senses become too fatigued to vibrate, but you do not become unconscious. As I before stated, there is no such condition of the mind as unconsciousness. You do not say that your tooth is unconscious when anesthetized. Mind is changing and unconditioned. The thinking of mind changes, but thoughts of mind are not mind. Thoughts are motion and mind is still. Thoughts manifest knowledge, but thoughts are not knowledge. The silent harp string has in it the soul of an idea. The vibrating harp string gives that idea body, which you can hear as sound. Sounds are sensations. All bodies are sensations. When the sound vibrations lie down to rest in the equilibrium of the heartstring, the idea of that harp string is still there in the silence from which the sound sprang. You can still know the sound, but you cannot sense it. Subconscious and superconscious mind. These terms are commonly accepted terms by practically all metaphysicians, writers, workers in the arts, psychiatrists, and others who give thought to human mental process. There are no such conditions as either subconscious or superconscious states of mind. The confusion of ideas which born such concepts arose from the mistaken belief that sensation of the body were mental. Body sensing has been mistaken for thinking, for when the electric current which caused sensation in the body weakened sufficiently to reduce the body's electric awareness of motion sufficiently to deaden or stupefy the senses, people concluded they were unconscious because their bodies had lost all awareness. Consciousness is the state of knowing. There is no activity in knowing, but there is activity in thinking. Mind is not stratified into sub or sub-layers. Mind is universal. It is all there is, and it is everywhere the same unchanging, one undivided light of all knowing from which all motion springs. Consciousness never changes. Everyone is always conscious, but few are aware of it. The human race has not unfolded to the point where it is cosmically aware of its conscious soul. The supreme hope of mankind. It is my desire to close this first half year of these lessons by climaxing all that has gone before with some ideas for you to give deep thought to for the unfoldment of your own higher powers. I am mindful of the fact that the reason that you are studying these lessons is because you are very far ahead of the masses of mankind. You have had sufficient cosmic awakening to have generated within your spiritual self an intense desire for the light of all knowing, which will transform you from the human animal stage of unfolding man, whose body senses have been preponderant in dominating your life, to the divine cosmic being, whose soul will be the absolute master of your body sensing. Your awakening to the light of love will awaken your brother to the light. You are the light of the world. You are the savior of man from himself. I want to point out to you the fact that the whole human race has been divided into two groups, a renaissant few of many whose ascension is toward the light, and a decadent millions whose ascension is toward the dark. The world is undergoing the agonies of a cataclysmic rebirth from body sensing to mind knowing. You who are becoming aware of your soul will become the seed for saving the human race from its deep plunge into the darkest of all of its dark ages since the dawn of consciousness in man. Civilization has been self-destroyed many times during the past 6,000 years, and is again being self-destroyed, and all for the same reason, selfishness of bodies and desires of bodies for sensation of bodies. Civilization can be reborn only through love of mind expressed in brotherhood of bodies. For thousands of years, man have been hurting each other to gain something for themselves. They have not yet found out that they cannot hurt another, but can hurt only themselves. The reason for the present decadence of the human race is because of the accumulation of the self-punishments resulting from the continuing hurting of man's own self by himself, while attempting to hurt other men. Empires are being disintegrated because of man's attempt to gain happiness, wealth, power, and prosperity for himself by destroying the happiness, wealth, power, and prosperity of others. New empires are attempting to be built by destroying other empires. Empire builders have themselves created their own destroyers. To live by the sword is to die by the sword. Empires are not only being destroyed from without, but from within. Graft and corruption are rampant in governments, and an era of unprecedented crime is undermining our own country as termites undermine buildings. Nations which were built upon crime are being destroyed by crime, nation by nation and man by man. That which man gave to man is being regiven to him in his own image. There is deep decadence in all the arts. Beauty has been replaced by ugliness in painting and sculpture. Culture is at its lowering ebb all over the world. No great men are being produced at such majestic standards as those great geniuses who has given us our present world culture. The great destroyer of unfolding man, the supreme tragedy of this age, is not alone in its wars. Wars destroy the best blood of all small percentage of whole people, but alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs are destroying an extremely large percentage of men, women, and teenage children of the whole world, who are slaves to the slow mental and physical poisoning of nicotine and other drugs and narcotics. For a whole century, this decaying process of man has been growing up so huge a scale that it is now rated as one of the 5 greatest industries of the world. The great danger in the use of such drugs as tobacco lies in the ignorance of the people as to what such drugs are doing to them. What drugs are doing to the human race. Awakening man is unfolding in the direction of the spiritual divine self. A small fraction of the human race has already been sufficiently illumined with the light of God awareness to deeply desire to live in the light and know its ecstasy. To these few of the many, soul will absolutely dominates the matter which is their bodies. These few are finding the kingdom of heaven within their consciousness and can know its heavenly rhythms by being enabled to completely forget their bodies. Forgetfulness of body and command of body by soul will is the supreme achievement of the mystic and the genius who knows the ecstasy of the divine light. It has taken millions of years and countless reincarnations for the unfolding of cosmic man to that high stage where he can sever body sensations from his consciousness to the extent that he can be entirely free from dominion by his sensed body and mastered by his own soul. Millions upon millions of humans have already arrived at the very door to the kingdom of heaven, who are now closing that door by becoming enslaved by their own bodies through nicotine, that simple, seemingly harmless, but insidious and treacherous slow-acting drug, which is closing the long-sought door to the light for countless millions. People who habitually smoke cannot either forget or rule their bodies. Drug addicts are ruled by their bodies to the exclusion of soul awareness, except at rare intervals when just the right amount of drugs balance their change normality for a few moments and intervals between the action and reaction cycles of the drug poisoning. It is claimed that smoking does not injure the body physically. That is not true, for it causes innumerable injuries, ranging from stomach ulcers, lung and throat infections, to cancers and heart weakness. But that is not important because the body is not of the first importance. The important fact is that smoking gradually depolarizes the thought process to such an extent that time cycles develop in which the body periodically demands nicotine to stimulate the brain cells. Then the body demands another cigarette. Some smokers' bodies demand only 6 or so cigarettes a day. Others demand 1 every 20 minutes. These become chain smokers who have lost practically all soul will. Chain smokers are body slaves to a drug. He who would deny his slavery to nicotine may prove his freedom by it by asserting his will over the power of nicotine. Not 1 in 1,000 long-time smoker ever succeeds in proving their own willpower over nicotine to be greater than the power of nicotine over them. The fact of body slavery is the important thing for any man to ponder over who is in search for his own soul and its dwelling place in the high heavens of God's light. Man is divine. He is the Son of God when he knows he is, but he can never know it through body sensing. He can only know it through the ecstasy of inspiration while in the light. Eternal man is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, but the body of man is but sensed clay and has neither power nor knowledge. Just so long as man is but sensed clay, he is but sensed clay and no more. The human race is seeking the kingdom of heaven through the Spirit. The inner voice of God is always directing every man to the door of light, but so long as man is but sense clay, he cannot hear the inner voice. Therein lies the tragedy of man's suicide of the spirit by the use of drugs. Habitual users of nicotine and alcohol so effectually change the polarity of their bodies that they more and more effectually shut out the inner voice as they suppress spirit in favor of electrifying the senses. Even the genius mind who becomes addicted to either nicotine or alcohol in excess is unable to express his genius until the stimulation of the drug allows him to become aware of the light of him for just a short interval. Then nicotine or alcohol calls loudly to his senses, and he reaches out for the drug to which his body is enslaved. I know of a great orator who could not make a speech until he had given his body a quart of whiskey. That amount of drug raised his polarity to the point where he could think brilliantly for a little while. Then came the reaction of the light which shone from him for just a little while grew dim, then darkened, and this otherwise great man wept because of what his slavery cost him. The great spiritual awakening of unfolding man can come only through awareness of the light in man. Alcohol and nicotine, taken into the body in sufficient quantities, changes one's polarity so much that the normal body polarity is lowered to an artificial one, and prevents any user of such drugs from manifesting God in him, except during those ever-lessening intervals when the drug stimulates him enough to allow him to reach his artificial normalcy. For brief moments he may even look upon the face of God and create inspired art while momentarily free, but those moments ever lessen as the bonds of slavery tighten to tear him from his high throne of the spirit of eternal man to again become but sensed clay of earth. God's words in his message are so clear and explicit upon this subject that we will write them here for your deep meditation. For I say that man who senses but clay of earth in him is bound to earth as clayed image of earth. Clayed images of my imagining, who know not me in them, are but dwellers of earth's dark. To sensed man the doors of my kingdom are self-barred by darkness, until the light of me in him is known by him as me. Until then he is but moving clay, manifesting not me in him, while sensing not but moving clay of him, knowing not the glory of my light in him. Wherefore I say to thee, exalt thou thyself beyond thy sensing. Know me as fulcrum of thy thinking, be me as deep well of thy knowing. From the Divine Iliad. Conclusion. Life is an eon-long journey to search for happiness. Happiness in man is an emotion which springs from love. To find happiness, man must find love. The journey of life is for the finding of love. God is love. When you find God, you find love. When you find God, you find the kingdom of heaven. When you find the kingdom of heaven, the purpose of life has been fulfilled. All else is added unto it. In the search for happiness and love and God in this high heavens, you make discoveries. In the long, long eons of mankind making discoveries, you discover that what you have searched for during the eons you already have. You never find out that you have it until you desire to give it. You then discover that you have it to give. From the moment of that discovery, you find the happiness and love in the measure of your giving. In your search for wealth, you discover that you already have wealth the moment you begin to give it. The measure of your wealth is the measure of your giving it. Do you doubt your power? Give of what you have, and you will discover that all the power and all the universe is yours to give. It is at the moment of your first giving that you discover your omnipotence. You have searched and you have found. Countless millions are also searching, but have not yet found even the path to the kingdom. A new dawn of unfolding man is breaking. Millions of searchers for the kingdom of heaven will die while searching for what you have found. You shall give them what they seek. You are the Savior of mankind in this new day. This our Father Mother commands of you as he is me. Every man loses his life 1,000,000 times to find eternal life, but he who has found eternal life and immortality shall bestow immortality upon him who seeks, but has not yet found. Yea, millions will die, but God leaves his messengers to await rebirth in man. The long journey of man's search for the light will forever continue, and the light of love will ever await the coming of man into his knowing of the light. But the agony of that awaiting shall be man's alone. End of lesson. Lesson number 24. Questions from students. The few questions that filter in from the many students are proof that so many of you are finding that all questions are answerable in light. Further proof that substantiates this is to be found in quotations from glorious letters from students who write in effect. There was a question I planned sending in, but as I did, you suggest, and meditated upon it within myself. The next day I discovered I knew the answer, and now it is clear as crystal. Over and over again we read in the letters how questions were answered from within, and we are made happy, very happy, for we know that this means our beloved students are unfolding in the light of all-knowing. We find, however, that when questions do come, the majority have a frustration keynote in them, which in their essence means, how can I be a success in life, be prosperous, have many friends, be happy? Frustration plays a big part in the making of unhappy lives. Such questions relating to personal selves so far exceed questions concerning desires for greater knowledge of universal things that we are taking a few which are typical of all of them and devoting this entire question section to giving a constructive answer which is intended to encourage and inspire those who despair ever reaching their desired goal. Many of these questions relate to my own life, such as how do you get in to see the big men of the world, like presidents of the U.S. and big industries, without effort, while I have to pull all the strings I know of and only get in to see the underlings? And how do you get so many portrait commissions from great people so easily, while I have to go to great effort to get unimportant ones at low prices? Because of these many personal questions, which infer that I must have some magic way of getting important commissions, or am lucky perhaps, I shall be personal in answering them and state that the principles which have given me an abundance of everything for which I sought, and in the measure of my desire for them. You will find in my attempt to give you the principles upon which I founded my life's desire, the one most conspicuous fact that I never sought or desired anything whatsoever for myself, neither possessions, nor money, nor friends, nor power, nor even the important sculptural or portrait commissions which have been so generously bestowed upon me. Every great happening in my life has come to me unsought for by me. God sent them. The surest way to prevent you from getting anything for yourself is to seek it for yourself. That which should be yours will surely come to you. If you analyze my answer to those questions, you will find that all of my success in life has been based upon putting the love principle into daily practice, by applying it to every act of life. Wherever I have practiced it and knowingly worked with God's law of love, God always gave it to me in the measure of my desire, and abundantly. But whenever I ever violated that law unthinkingly or because of being pressed by seeming necessities, that which I sought did not come to me. Herein follows a few typical questions based upon frustration. Question: how can I climb to the top in our factory from the lowly position I now occupy? And how can I overcome my inferiority complex which keeps me there? Question: how can I apply the laws you teach to my personal life to make friends and keep them, to cultivate charm of manner, to attract love and make people want to know me? Question: I'm terribly lonely. I do not seem to know how to make friends. Can you tell me what to do? Question: you say that God will give whatever we desire. I believe that in principle, but no matter how much I desire things, pray for them, and try to live right to be worthy of them, it does not work out for me. What is wrong? Question: you say that what is mine will come to me. It does not seem to. I'm a salesman. I work harder and many more hours than other salesmen, and barely fill my quota, while others work much less and double their quotas. My wife has to work to help out, while the wives of others selling the same thing have servants and good clothes. Could you explain your success by giving some personal examples which apply to your principles? Answer: the great deterrent to happiness, peace, and prosperity, which every man is seeking, is the still remaining influence of the jungle, which is man's inheritance and is foremost in his memory. The keynote of man's primate existence was self-preservation. The method he made use of to ensure self-preservation was to take anything he wanted from other men for himself. The whole keynote of man's past ages has been self, the individual self. His whole desire was for self alone, and still is. The whole keynote of cosmic man of future ages is the universal self, which means a full realization of the brotherhood of man as one, and of unity with God as one. Man must now learn that he must lose his own self in order to find the universal self. The basis of cosmic man's desire is to give himself for the universal self. In him, the individual self is lost in the desire to give service for the whole of mankind, to the exclusion of self, to utter forgetfulness of self. In the above you find my answer in principle to all the questions asked regarding personal success. Now let us take this principle apart and analyze it. Let us show how it works by example and analogy. Let me thus show you how it worked for me, for my whole policy of life has been based upon selfless service for the universal self as a whole, and it has worked for me just as it works for all others in the measure in which they place service to all men before service to self. Analysis of principle. If I could put the above into a few words which might be called a life policy or life pattern, such as a businessman forms of his business policy, the following would depict that policy. But you must bear in mind that a policy is something which is decided upon for strategic reasons, whereas this life pattern of procedure was my nature. It was not just planned. 1. I loved the world which I am, and desired to serve it with love by giving more than was expected of me. 2. I desired to be worthy of serving the world. 3. I desired to excel in all things. 4. I set no limitations upon myself. I knew that I could do whatever I desired to do. As my desires were boundless, so were my powers to manifest them limitless. 5. I sought no reward, asked no favors, no intercession in my interest from any man. 6. I worked knowingly with God, and knew that I need not ask for reward or favors or advice or intercessions from any man so long as I gave of myself to all men. To demonstrate how this principle actually worked, I will briefly tabulate some of the major happenings of my life to show how true it is that what is mine shall come to me, to quote a familiar saying. As a prelude to this statement, it is well to explain that when I say that God sent to me the great happiness of my life, as he does to you, I mean that God is law. So when you or I become law by obeying it, that actually means that God sends us that which we have desired. In the sense that I and my Father are one, I myself sent them to myself, as you likewise do. Conversely, if I do not become law, I violate it. God then withholds my desire until I do obey it by becoming the law. In the same sense that I and my Father are not one, when I am not law, I myself have withheld my desires from myself. Early in life I excelled in music. I gave all of myself to it so joyously that the neighborhood marveled and came to me. Men from the car barns across the street sat at my dooryard when I thus gave love out of myself to the world, and they gave me of their love and quickened me. All of the love I ever expressed in music brought love to me. I never sought it. Excellence in that art brought me a church organ and piano positions for Sunday and Friday. Love thus regiven to me sent me to an art school and lifted me from the status of an errand boy, which could have been drudgery had I not glorified it by deeply loving it as one stepping stone toward my heaven. In the art school, love given out by me in God's rhythm was regiven when Paderewski accidentally heard me play and came to me. I worshipped him from afar at orchestra rehearsals where students were admitted, but did not seek him. It never even occurred to me to seek him. One glory after another came to me as love regiven for love given. That is a law. No one has to seek fulfillment of God's law. No one has to seek reward for manifestation God's law. No one need ever ask help or intercession of others in manifesting the law of love. Love given is always regiven. Everyone knows that story of my bellboy career told by Glenn Clark in his marvelous little biography of my life, the story of my desire to be the best bellboy ever known, the only bellboy who never accepted a tip and joyfully gave much more service than was expected. No more wonderful example of fulfillment of the law of love regiven to me was ever mine to know for my manifestation of love given by me. Many of the powerful whom I humbly served became lifelong friends. 3 families desired to adopt me. Rules regarding servants were set aside so that I might be a guest of the hotel guest. Bellboys who had accepted tips earned about $100 in gratuities. I earned $800 by selling sketches. Many years later, the family of an ex-governor of Massachusetts commissioned me to paint several portraits. When I had brought ice water to their door many years before, I also brought love, and they remembered it and came to me to regive it. As a young illustrator, I was asked to illustrate a story called 10 Little Pigs. After completing my drawing, I was not satisfied with them. They did not excel. I spent a week in the country studying pigs and did them all over again. More love went into them. I worked with God's hands and mine instead of mine alone. They excelled. The love I gave them was reflected in Mark Twain, who regave it to me. Work done worthily brought Mark Twain into my life. He consulted with me regarding illustrating The Jumping Frog of Cavalier Country. Work done worthily and with love by you or any other man on earth, no matter how lowly he is, will make the greatest man on earth want to know you. You need not seek them, nor ask others to intercede for you, or to give you letters of introduction to them. If you want to know great men, make them want to know you. Emerson knew this when he said, "If you build a better mousetrap than your neighbor, the world will make a beaten path to your door." That is as true of the shoe manufacturer as it is of the sculptor, composer, or painter. Love put into any product regives love from happy purchasers. Work worthily done is service given to all the world, and all the world regives it in like measure. The world beats a path to the door of every man who excels in the giving of loving service to his neighbors. Excellence, worthiness, selflessness, and joyfulness given out by you echoes in the hearts of all men. The world will find a way to your door if you attract to it you by working with the law. Beauty attracts, ugliness repels. Immunize yourself from all that is ugly. See beauty in all things, and what is yours will come to you. George Washington Carver exemplified this principle. He asked nothing, sought nothing from any man. He lived only to give, to serve, to enrich mankind with his excellence. No one could have been more lowly, more obscure, yet the world beat a path to his door and laid garlands of love at his feet. Excellence and love expressed by superseding mediocrity in the drawing of those 10 little pigs has followed me all the days of my life. I attribute some of life's highest honors given me to the love I gave to that simple task. We will trace its effect over the years. Mark Twain's friendship extended to his family and host of friends. Excellence in literature gave me a membership in the Authors Club. I spent delightful hours there with Mark Twain and visiting literature of note, such as Yeats, Sir Conan Doyle, Kipling, Rabindranath Tagore, Sir Oliver Lodge, and hosts of others. I was commissioned to do a bust of Mark Twain because of excellence given to other work. I did not seek it. Excellence given in love to that work showered me with untold regiving of love expressed by Albert Bigelow Paine, Irvin Cobb, Irving Batchelor, John Masefield, George Bernard Shaw, and many others whom I did not seek, but who came to me in the fulfillment of the law. Then followed a request that I create the Mark Twain Memorial. I did not seek that honor. It came to me because of service given by me. To that commission I gave all I had to give to the world, working knowingly with God for many years, and the world gave it back to me 100-fold in expression of love from the many hearts which echoed the rhythms of beauty the monument symbolized. To list the names of the world's illumined ones who enriched me with words from their very souls would take up many pages, for their names are legion, and the places they occupy in the hearts of men are the highest in all the arts, education, government, and industry. Included among them were the presidents of the 17 leading universities. Franklin D. Roosevelt, President of the United States, said to me, "7 sculptors have failed to make the masterpiece of me which I hope to see. I believe that a man who could create such a spiritual portrait of Mark Twain as you have would be the one who could make a masterpiece of me. Will you do it?" This exemplifies the working of the law. Every sculptor in the land had used every influence he had to bring about to receive such a commission. Senators and others in high places had been asked to intercede for them, but I never even thought of asking that of anyone, knowing, as I know, that what is mine will come to me. But it can be mine only through giving its equivalent to the world. That brings to my mind another similar example in which another president of the United States, Theodore Roosevelt, sent for me, saying, "Your portraits of children are the most beautiful I've ever seen. Will you paint my children and Mrs. Roosevelt?" This commission opened a door to other opportunities for self-expression, which have not yet reached their climax. It also gave me 3 years of association with one of the greatest spiritual men in American history. But even this honor arose from another one which preceded it, and proves that every action of giving never ceases to repeat its effect, accumulating forever. During the years that I gave to child portraiture, my desire to excel in everything I ever gave out for myself drew the attention of thousands of lovers of beauty to my work. Newspapers devoted whole pages of pictures to them, and every portrait of a child I painted drew requests for so many more that I had to limit them to guard against my lowering of standard. Excellence and the recognition of love extended to my creations, brought to me one of the most glorious experiences of my life. A famous editor, Edward Bok of the Ladies' Home Journal, who later built that beautiful Bok Tower in Florida, published a page of my drawings of children and commissioned me to select the 12 most beautiful children in America. This work excited intense national interest all over the country and enriched me by thousands of new friends whom I met all over the country. My offers of commissions at that time would have taken several lifetimes to complete. It was this work, however, which prompted then the President of the United States to honor me. Again I say that the giving of love is as certain to be regiven as that day will dawn from the night. It would take too many pages to enumerate the many demonstrations of the inevitability of the working of God's law of love wherever I put it into action, accompanied by my intense desire to excel in everything I did. Especially I want to accentuate the endlessness of every good section of life where excellence, love, and desire to serve the world with forgetfulness of self are manifest. For example, my musical beginnings where it never ended. Music brought me the friendship of the greatest musicians of our day, such men as Ysaye, Antonio Scotti, Caruso, Sousa, Godowsky, Geberlich, Victor Herbert, Joseph Levine, Giovanni Martinelli, George Gershwin, Tito Ruffo, Boozy Peachy, and hundreds of other immortals, 5 of whom I have been commissioned to model in bronze and stone for posterity. My work in both art and science brought to me the presidency of the Science of Arts and Sciences, which I held for 7 years, together with the friendship of the greatest names in all the arts and sciences of our day, together with the most important sculptural commissions I ever received, because it was my first work in sculpture, that of Thomas Edison. Among the many whose souls touched mine during this epoch period were such names as Michelson, Millikan, Shapley, John Dewey, Lee De Forest, Jeans, Pupin and many others in science, Nazimova, Isadora Duncan, Richard and Eva Lagulian, Edward Hubbard, Eva Gautier, Grace Moore, Lily Pone, Alma Gluck, Adolph Oakes, and many other children of the stars whose light has illumined the world. For excellence and love given to painting the might of ages, 9 European countries regave to me their appreciation and high honors in a visit to my studio of King Albert of Belgium. I cite this latter as a conspicuous example of how the building of a better mousetrap brings the world to your door without your solicitation. Thousands of important people made great efforts to meet King Albert. I made no effort at all. I had merely given something to the world which echoed in his heart and made him want to see me. Excellence in self-expression and love given to it will enrich anyone's life. Even in sports, my 2 outdoor sports of horsemanship and skating carried this principle into effect. In skating, I won many honors and medals, including being nominated international judge for the Duke of Connaught figure skating trophy held in Ottawa, which brought with it the honor of being the guest of the Duke and Duchess of Devonshire at Government House, and of leading the Grand March with the Duchess at the final Carnival on ice in the Palace grounds. In horsemanship, I trained Arabian stallions and sold them for as high as $15,000. It is the love which you put into out-of-door sports which vitalizes you, not the exercise. For without love, the exercise reaches only the clay of you. Exercise with love reaches your very soul and vitalizes you with the power which joyousness and ecstasy alone will give. Conclusion. There are many who say to me, "But I am not extraordinarily gifted with genius for anything. I cannot do great things." Then do little things in a great way, until you can do great things in a great way. Little things, even the building of a better mousetrap. Little things, such as putting love into your cooking, into your conversation, into your very attitude as you walk through life, and into your every dealing with your neighbor. I say again to you that if you put love into anything you say or do, love will come back to you in the measure of your giving. Witness, for example, what the ground gives to you for the love that you give it. There are those who say to me also, "I am lonely, I need the love of a wife or a husband, and it does not come to me." The love you await is searching for you as you likewise are searching for it. Keep on giving love, and your love will come to you, as you are likewise nearing it every moment. Believe this until you know it. In your meditation, desire and envision your companion in all things coming to you, and you yourself, walking out to the horizon of your vision to meet that one. If you are manifesting God by serving mankind, you cannot do it fully alone. Destiny mates everything. Pairs of opposites divide the undivided. Destiny is always fulfilled if you and your loved one work together with the law which fulfills it. God's plan calls for fulfillment of all manifestations of the law. You must, however, manifest the law before its fulfillment to perfection. And the law said that you are never to seek anything for yourself as self alone, but for your universal self. When you have learned how to lose self-desire to find universality in giving fully of yourself to God for the fulfillment of His purpose, then your desires will come to you. I know whereof I speak, and Lau also, for we both visioned each other on our horizon, and mutual need gave us to each other after we had both fully learned what lessons of selflessness, of desire for each other as individual selves. Both Lau and I had fully dedicated ourselves to the service of man. Destiny has made our purposes one, and destiny made our path to our horizon as one. We had both fulfilled the law which gave us to each other for the purpose of continuing to fulfill the law. Our destiny is one, so it had to be fulfilled upon one path. Perfection in companionship, whether matrimonial, social, or otherwise, can be found only by having one goal, one objective, and one path for a unified companionship to tread. Too many there are in matrimony and social and business companionships who have separate goals and separate paths leading to them. If two lives are not destined for and dedicated to the same purpose, it is better that they do not unite, for their paths can never become one. In your meditations, therefore, desire companionship from soul, and soul will respond to soul always, just as harmonics and octaves will always resound in each other, while discord will not. That is the way of your love. It is awaiting you as you are awaiting it. But are you desiring it? What I mean by that is, are you desiring love to supplement your giving to the world, or are you desiring love for yourself in a body to be companions in body? Are you ready for the love you desire, and are you worthy of it? If you tune 1,000 violins alike and sound one note on one of them, all of them will resound to the same note. But if one of them is not similarly tuned, that one will remain unechoed and alone. If you are lonely, give the thought to what I have just written. If you love the world, love will come to you from the world in the measure that you are giving it. If you attune yourself to the light of God's love and give it out from you, it will resound throughout the universe, and its echoing will come back to you. Conversely, all the love given out by all the world will resound in you, and you will know its ecstasy. When you have unfolded to the point of knowing the kingdom of heaven in you, all else will be added to it. That is what I mean by telling you the story of how all things I desired have come to me only after I had learned that I already had all of my desires within me by giving them out from me. After Lao had learned that fully, and I had learned it fully, we both went expectantly and knowingly to our horizon and found each other waiting there. What was ours had come to us, for we had become ready for it. We had become worthy of it. Excellence proved itself. Selflessness proved itself. Worthiness proved itself. Just as my own had always come to me unsought in the measure of my giving, so likewise the greatest of all life's treasured gifts of love came to Lao and me to follow the one path to the light, and thus illumine the way for all who desire the light, but cannot find the way to it. Letter. Beloved friends, your sharing of your unfolding comprehension of the light of all-knowing through your study of these lessons has been our greatest joy these past 6 months. You are now midway in your 12-month study of the underlying principle of God's great universe. Knowing from your letters how great has been your self-unfoldment, I know you will never again view passing events in the old way, through your senses, but will more and more take them within and view them with new comprehension based upon knowing. As you are now recognizing the simplicity of all things, and are passing your inner knowing on to others, we know you realize how difficult it is to tell the story of creation simply. An editor once said that the simplest story in the world is the hardest to tell. Doctor has 1,000 times said that the God's plan is the simplest story in the world. For whatever phase of creation you talk about, you say the same thing in every respect. He so often says that there is nothing beyond the Divine Trinity, and that can be fully told in 3 minutes. That is why, just after his illumination, he thought he could gather the scientists of the world together and tell them the basic principle of creation in 3 minutes. If you analyze these 24 lessons given so far, you will see that we have not stepped outside of that principle in any respect. We have told the same story many times, varying only the words to fit different phases of the same thing. Lights flash for so many facets of a diamond, the lights being all one, likewise the facets of the diamond being one. Therein lies the immense difficulty of telling a supreme story simply, for behind the scientific principle of the Divine Trinity is the love principle, which is the hardest thing in all man's unfolding to teach to them. 20 centuries ago, the Sermon on the Mount told the story fully, but 20 centuries have passed, and the story of love has only begun to seep into the consciousness of but a small percentage of mankind. Love has not yet become even a small force in the guise of human relations, much less the mighty force which it must become before humans will have learned to live together in any semblance of peace. All over the world, men are hurting each other in diverse ways, and are thus hurting themselves as a consequence. Love is still far from man. God is love, and the universe is founded upon love. The only spiritual power man has to use in his human relations is love, expressed by equal giving and regiving. And the only physical power he has to use is the manifestation of love as expressed by equal interchange of motion between the opposed pressures of gravitation and radiation, whether in the electric current or any other manner of interchange between the two opposites which divide the equilibrium of God's light into the two moving lights of matter in motion. The happiness, prosperity, peace, and power that all mankind desires is summed up in one word, love. But neither of these can come to man until he knows how to express love by giving it and re-giving it equally. That is the tragedy of man. It is his own self-made tragedy. Unbalance based upon ignorance of the meaning of love is man's needless tragedy. Rhythmic, balanced interchange between all pairs of opposite conditions in this divided universe is the key to the attainment of man's greatest desires and highest aims. But he has not yet learned how to use it. It is your responsibility to teach him how to use it, yours and ours. Eons pass with love ever awaiting, but only a very few have arisen above the agony of awaiting and have been transformed through new knowing. That is why this simple story is so hard to tell, For the practice of man's eons pulls so hard toward the clay of him and the desire of his body that the very noise of its vibrant motion drowns out the ecstasy of the inner silent voice which ever awaits the hearing of inner ears. That is why doctors often almost despaired at ever being able to tell it, to ever put into words that for which there are no words. It was with great rejoicing that we can now put it into words, for the message long needed to love and knowing, which was fulfilled by our working together to give to the world as one person treading but one path, one deeply illumined path to the light. Man in the mass knows practically nothing about man. He has but begun to rise above his sensing to think and to know. He has been a physical universe. He has hardly touched the edge of his vast powers. His senses advance his physicality like a strong stimulant. They give him many comforts and new sensation for the hours of his release from drudgery by his many new inventions. Instead of using his released hours for cultural advancement, he uses them for more sensations, for more new sensations. In past days of less leisure, children studied music and other arts. Fairy tales and romance fascinated them. They idolized Tennyson. Parents read good books, attend concerts, the opera, and held cultural gatherings. Children now want noise and still more noise as they shift radio and television dials to find more stimulation for their senses, and parents do the same thing in a more grown-up manner by adding drugs to produce new sensation. We are not creating great men as we have done when culture was on the ascendant. The world has no use for new Tennysons, or Beethovens, Schuberts, Mozarts, or Angelos, or the great painters, sculptors, and writers of 50 years ago, when the great decadence began, which preferred to hear Beethoven syncopated and God's beauty of form distorted. Let us not be disheartened, however, for the purest of lilies arise from the blackest of mire. Out of decay of all things comes rebirth of better things. Desire for love, peace, happiness, and prosperity is in every human heart, but the edge of the jungle must still be cut away to free men from its dark. All down through the ages the whole of mankind has been uplifted, just a little at a time, by a very few who brought just one message to their fellow man, the message of love. And each time that message came into the world it was lifted up just a very little at a time. But man in the mass has still not yet unfolded into the light sufficiently to reverse his practice of taking and substituting giving, or replacing sensing with knowing. We recognize this great cosmic love in our daily letters from you, for never a day passes that we do not read such words as the following. We bask in this regiving, and now joyous experiences meet us at every turn. We walk on air, knowing that we are known by what we are. This whole activity has blossomed from the insistent demands on the part of others, and we find it a real joy to help others to gain the same understanding they see in us. We see in all of you the help that God promised would come to deliver the message, for we know that by just being, you are giving forth the light of love, and those seeing this new light in your eyes will pause to wonder and inquire, for all men want their own to come to them. Love is the answer to all things, not what men have called love in past ages, for that was for the senses only, but love of God, which is the ecstasy of soul, bringing balance to all relationships. Be they marital, social, or business, and having love we know that our own has already come. Next month you shall go further into the principle of cosmic knowing, every lesson a step near your final goal of all knowing. Do know that our love is with you, step by step. Go forward with courage, knowing that in all the world there is only one, the universal one. My love always, Lowell Russell. End of lesson. Lesson number 25. We still search for simplicity. We live in a bewildering world which confuses us only because we do not know it. A primate would be similarly confused about a watch. To him wheels would have no meaning because both the mechanics and purpose of the watch would be incomprehensible to him. Yet the watch is very simple to you. Its mechanics and purpose are perfectly familiar to you. You regard it as a very simple thing to understand. You are confused about creation because you do not know it. Likewise, you are confused about the Creator because you do not know Him. Also, you are confused about the mechanics and purposefulness of matter and motion because you do not know them. You may think you need not be interested in knowing about matter and motion because it seems difficult, but you must know their cause, and that is very simple. Without this knowledge, you are like a ship without a navigator. You must know creation, for your body, which you are building, is one unit of it. You must know how to control it. You also must know it for what it is instead of what you think it is. When you become familiar with it as being but certain states of motion, you must know that these states of motion are wave records of your desires, just as a picture in the record of the painter's desire. A manufacturer produces a better product in the measure of his knowledge of his product. Your body is as much your product as the product of your fantasy. Millions of years of your desires produced it. In 1 minute, the desire of your will can alter its entire structural balance in either direction, toward life or death, without the slightest physical action upon your part. The medical profession can make enormous strides in its great service to man, but starting upon a basis of a greater knowledge of cause of the countless effects it encounters. In its search for cause of effects in matter, its beginning should be in a greater knowledge of motion, which matter is, and the relation of mind to motion, which polarizes or depolarizes body structure, or unbalances its polarity to form destructive tissues and destructive electrochemical reaction. It is for this reason that we must talk in simple language while taking matter apart to see how and why it ticks, as we have to take the watch apart for the same reason. The need for simple language is great because the things which shall be told you about motion needs the replacing of old concepts with new ones. These new concepts must become new foundation for comprehension of things not yet known or even dreamed of in nature. All mankind is still as a primate, a stage concerning the cause and purposeful of all effects of motion, as the early man is to whom you are trying to explain the watch. When you finished explaining one thing to him in the simplest words, you could find you would have to explain one thing after another about the wheels, the gears, the central shaft, and its extensions before he even faintly comprehended its mechanism. Even then, he would know nothing of its motivating force, nor the principle of time itself. No matter how simple your words are, you would find it very difficult to make that thing which is so simple to you seem simple to him. You would find yourself using the simplest kind of words as though you were talking to a child. That is what I have been doing for the first 24 lessons, just attempting to lay a simple foundation for the motivating spirit in the still center of the universal shaft from which all power is extended, for its cycles of divided and multiplied power, and to which all wheels are geared through each other to manifest the tick-tick-tick of the heartbeat of the universe, which spells out the time sequence of every action-reaction of creation. And so it is that I must find simple words and simple examples to explain fully to you the tick-tick of the divided universe of time and space, which is one tick on each side of every equator to balance each other's unbalanced condition, and repeated upon the other side of the equator, as the other tick of the cosmic pendulum. You simultaneously live in two worlds, and you must know both of them thoroughly in their relation to each other. The universal pump would not continue to unfold this appearing, disappearing two-world universe if it were not for that electric interchange of motion from one side of the equator to the other, as long as the energy of desire divides the undivided still light into pairs of moving lights. Suppose instead of my having used the words appearing, disappearing universe in the above paragraph, I use the words living, dying universe, or growing, decaying universe, or generating, degenerating universe, or gravitating, radiating, positive, negative, male, female, hot, cold, or centripetal, centrifugal universe. No matter which pair of words I use, they would all have the same meaning. They are all of them the compression-expansion strokes of the piston, which pumps opposite pressure from each other to make bodies seem to appear out of nothing and then disappear into that seeming nothing, which is the reality of all seeming. It is not helpful to talk about reality and unreality abstractly. These phrases, and many like them, such as the divided and the undivided, the physical and the spiritual, or mortal mind and divine mind, are commonly used. But if most people were pinned down with the necessity of explaining them to someone who wanted to know, they would find themselves in a quandary. But you who are acquiring this new knowledge are able to explain all of such phases. Knowing what they mean gives you a supremacy of power over all things, of your own body as well as the universal body, of cultural things as well as physical. For out of the rhythm of the divided universe come the expression of all of the arts, and from the undivided light comes the soul of idea, which is extended to cultural and intellectual expression in the arts. Likewise, your knowledge of the secrets which lie hidden within the wave gives you mastery of universal mechanics, mathematics, and energy expression. Conversations are too much filled with abstractions and affirmations without comprehension of their meaning. Refer back to figures 8 and 9 on page 149 to exemplify my meaning. Now pause for a while and recall what so many have called the great mystery of how solid and liquid bodies emerge from space and are swallowed up again by it, which means how the divided universe emerges from the undivided light of mind. Meditate upon this thought for a while. I am not only trying to make you look upon nature more simply, I am trying to make you look upon life and death more simply as you look upon sound and silence. I am trying to make you know that you cannot die. When you breathe in, you are manufacturing your body because you desire to live. When you are breathing out, you are destroying your body because you desire to die. You desire to die as much as you desire to live. Do not be too hasty in denying this. Think about it for a while. Let us think about it together and see if true thinking of nature is not better than false thinking. Action and life manifest rest and death. Let us think about life and death again, but let us not use these two words which have such a hopeful and dreadful connotation. Let us absolutely forget that pair of words by substituting instead the words motion and rest. And when you think of motion, think of it as being divided, and of rest as being undivided and indivisible. Recall what I said about desire itself being divided into two opposite expressions of energy, the desire to concentrate and the desire to decentrate. When you desire to manifest an idea at rest in your mind, you concentrate your thinking by setting it into motion, continuing to multiply the motion until you focus it into an imagined body of that invisible idea. In other words, you wind up something which was invisible until it becomes visible. You generate a condition called gravity. Then what do? You decentrate your thinking by setting your brakes against that multiplying motion until it ceases in rest. Motion then decelerates until it comes to rest in the idea from which it started. In other words, you unwind that which you have made visible until it becomes invisible. You radiate gravity into space. Again, I repeat the principle that all motion starts from a point of rest, seeks a point of rest, and returns to the equilibrium of rest from which it sprang. Motion starts centripetally to wind up into form bodies and ends centrifugally to unwind them into zero. Perhaps we may now formulate a definition of creation based upon the above as follows. Creation is an idea at rest in God's knowing mind, manifested by two-way motion in God's thinking mind. Deep thought upon this idea should reveal to you that life is but desire for motion, and death is desire for rest from motion. Likewise, both life and death are but bodies of thought formed in the image of thoughts which come and go in thinking mind forever. The greater the vitality which generates power to multiply motion, the greater is your ability to manifest life. But the moment you divide that power by depolarization or fatigue, or anything whatsoever which reduces the power of your body cells to pump vigorously, that moment you express death. Now consider your desire in the morning to get into action and express that power vitally all day. Do you not equally desire to cease from action at night to relax? Then still later to cease even the action of thinking by fully resting in sleep. If you will weigh them both in your thoughts, you will find that the desire for rest is equal to the desire for motion. Rest is the direction of death from which life is reborn, for every condition in nature borns its opposite condition. Your desire to breathe in is equal by your desire to breathe out, but when you breathe in, you compress to express life by acceleration of motion, and when you breathe out, you expand to express death by deceleration of motion. When you breathe in, you create your body. When you breathe out, you destroy your body. Your body appears from the invisibility of rest and disappears from the visibility of motion. You are perpetually living and dying, growing and decaying, generating and radiating, moving and resting. Your body grows from multiplication of motion. It decays from division of motion. It generates and radiates for the same reason that it lives and dies, and the desire for each is equal. Neither can be without the other. Each is born from the other simultaneously, then born the other sequentially. The principle of the Divine Trinity underlines all that herein stated, and their expression is possibly only through two-way interchange of motion between each pair of opposites through each other. Conclusion: when any of our loved ones die, we rightfully feel a great sense of grief and loneliness. All the knowledge in the world will not assuage that expression of emotion. That is as it should be. We are all of us actors in the divine drama of creation, and if its actors did not express emotions which are appropriate to the lines of the play, they would be useless and purposeless actors. Grief, suffering, loneliness, and kindred emotions are as purposeful in the divine drama of life as joyfulness, happiness, and like emotions are purposeful. And being purposeful, they are good. Sunshine in nature would be a calamity without shadow, and an artist's picture would be purposeless and valueless without both sunshine and shadow in their balanced relation. No matter how great your knowledge of the unreality of death may be, no matter how strongly you may live in the spiritual world, you must not forget that you have a physical body which manifests spiritual idea, and that you live in both the divided and the undivided universe of cause and effect. To have so much knowledge of the undivided universe that it leaves you cold to the emotions of the divided universe is to hold yourself aloof from the play and render you purposeless. I have often said that the greatest achievement of life is to learn how to take all things alike, but I do not mean that by one should become an intellectual stoic. God's body expresses all of the emotions and passions which result from a division of electric pressures into two opposite conditions. All of them manifest God's thinking, and they always balance. Storms subside, and the calm after the storm demonstrates that both are equally good. The calm is lovelier after the storm, just as the water is sweeter after the long drought. What I do mean about learning to take all things alike is to be strong in the knowledge that all things are good, and every effect is divided into its opposite effect, and each of the pairs equal to the other, each equally good. Your capacity for joy and happiness may be measured by your capacity for grief and suffering. All of the knowledge in the world should not dehumanize you. Your knowledge will, however, balance all opposite emotions, and thus enrich you for having experienced them, while ignorance will breed fear, worry, superstition, and other unnatural emotions which act as a terrific burden to your progress. Knowledge of universal law will give you courage to transform the greatest defeat which ever threatened you into your greatest achievement. It will give you a philosophy by means you may meet the grief of death enriched by the knowledge that every experience is good, and that every experience strengthens you to meet all experience alike. You will know that the emergence of life from the universal equilibrium is not greater nor better than its return journey to the same equilibrium for reemergence. You will know that the equator, which borns life, has but transformed death into another manifestation of life, which is as endless in its eternal repetition as the undivided universe is eternal in its changelessness. And so it is that I must still unfold to you in simple words and diagrams the undivided balance of the changeless one and the divided balance of the changing pair of opposites which manifest the one. You shall know that the undivided cannot be divided, but can seem to be. You shall know that the perspective of time and of the cosmos, which makes all things seem to be what they simulate, but are not that which they simulate. And you shall know that what emerges from one side of its equator is equal, but opposite to that which is on the other side, and that each will disappear in seeming death to be reborn each other as seeming life. The anodes of the universe are likewise cathodes, and the cathodes are likewise anodes, as surely as you who breathe out breathe in again, to again breathe out, and you who live are dying as you live, and must forever die to forever live. We shall therefore build thought bodies and give them form in light waves of octave tones, and call them solids of matter, which constitute the inexplicable objective universe of so many things which mystify us and leave us so grossly ignorant that we write down tragedies and calamities in our lives which should be glorious with golden fruits of ecstatic knowing, and we write upon life's pages defeats and illnesses and breakdowns where naught but our ascension should be written. All things on earth and heaven of this divided universe of God's recorded thoughts are good, because God's thoughts are good. You may be perfectly willing to believe this statement as abstract truth, but belief in it without knowing will not make you strong. You must know, for knowing alone will make you strong. End of lesson. Lesson number 26, Sound, Silence, and Wave Vibrations. We will again consider the making of bodies which appear and disappear to live and die from another point of view. Let me recall, as heretofore stated, that all that God does is to make bodies to manifest his all-knowing. Also I stated that this is all you likewise do. Let me again emphasize the fact that all bodies are but states of motion, living, dying states of motion, generating, degenerating states of motion which arise from rest and have to keep moving very fast to simulate the idea of life. As long as they move fast enough, they have living bodies, but as they slow down, they lose their bodies. To increase their speed, they must have enough energy to polarize. They always lose it, however, and depolarize. It is you who give them that energy, and it is you who take it away. Instead of using the words states of motion, we will substitute the word vibrations, and we will amplify the word by saying wave vibrations. Let us again amplify this by saying thought wave vibrations. All bodies are transient thought wave vibrations which come and go to give body forms to thought vibrations. Vibrations of motion extend from stillness. The heartbeat of creation is a two-way piston stroke of vibratory motion which extends from the still light of mind. Mind knowing is real. Moving bodies simulate reality. We will exemplify this idea of vibratory motion by constructing a body of sound waves which extend from the silent idea of sound as waves of water extend from its calm. Figure 52 represents the idea of a tone of music in a silent harp string. The desire to give a body to that idea is manifested by setting the string in vibratory motion. To do that, you divide the silence of the harp string, just as you divide the calm surface of water when you throw a stone into it, which extends the surface into waves. Figure 53 represents the harp string vibrating so rapidly that you hear one continuous sound so long as the wave continues to vibrate. Then the sound ceases living. It dies. What really has happened is that a body of sound was given to an idea of music for a cycle of time. Then the vibration ceased. The sound then disappeared in the silence of rest from which it sprang into motion to manifest the idea. The sound appeared, and it disappeared and will reappear, but the silent idea is eternal. It will again appear when desire causes it to reappear. The idea of music does not either live or die, that is changeless and eternal. It is the sound which manifests the music which lives and dies, just as it is only your body which manifests you, which lives and dies, then again lives and dies forever and ever. Again we repeat that life and death are but opposite states of motion, centripetal, motion which contracts toward gravity, and centrifugal, motion which expands toward space. Life is a fast winding up of light waves into bodies of visible matter. Death is a balanced unwinding of light waves into invisible matter. I wish you would all meditate long upon this idea. Your all-knowing inner voice will tell you many things if you will do so. The divided and the undivided. Before continuing to construct a sound body for a musical tone, I wish to give you a thought for you to transform the knowing by prolonged meditation. Consider the familiar motion picture. You know that every expression of life on that screen is motion only. All forms of bodies and all sounds and actions of bodies are but the seeming motion of light waves which have been projected from a still point of rest to simulate motion. You know also that what seems like motion is due to a very rapid succession of still pictures thrown upon the screen one at a time so rapidly that the eye does not detect any single picture before the next one of a slightly changed pattern is projected. Neither do you detect the blank gap which divides each picture where nothing is. If the projection machine were slowed down very materially, your sense of sight would detect each separate picture and the gap between. Likewise, your sense of hearing would detect an interval of silence between each sound, just as you can detect an interval of silence between the explosions of a Gatling gun. The continuity of a steam whistle is due to the intense rapidity of its sequential explosions. If these explosions could be slowed down very materially, you would hear them as separate events taking place sequentially on opposite sides of their equator. What I now wish you to do, in order to increase your comprehension of the continual interworking between the divided universe and the undivided universe, also in order for your greater comprehension of the impossibility of dividing the undivided, also for clarifying your comprehension of the illusion which makes it seem possible to divide the undivided, is to imagine the silent harp string as an interval of silence between two musical sounds, and relate that effect to the black gap between sequence of motion pictures, and also relate it to the silent intervals between explosions of a Gatling gun. Take note that in the following drawing there is no sound at all on the equator, which is the motionless harp string. That equator is an area of silence, silence unbroken, undivided. Sound takes place only upon each side of its equator of silence, for there is motion on each side and no motion at all on the dividing equator. If you fully comprehend what I have just told you, you will fully comprehend the relation of the divided universe of motion, which forever repeats its sequence of motion to create illusion, to the undivided universe of stillness from which these sequences of motion are projected. In other words, you will be intellectually able to constantly aware of the two worlds in which you live, the undivided and the divided, instead of just the one divided world of the senses, which has dominated man's action for ages. The supremacy of man is dependent upon the measure of his ability to live knowingly in the undivided mind universe. The Master makes use of the divided universe of sensed matter as he wills, or dismisses it from his consciousness when he wills. Until you become master of matter, it will master you. The greatest aim of your life should be freedom from matter and to be its master. That is why I am stressing the mechanics of the divided universe of sensed matter, which has made man its slave for ages, in order that knowing man can transcend matter and becomes its master instead of its slave. For this reason you must know the mechanics of it until it is automatic in you. The small effort of study you give to knowing this principle in your heart is more than priceless to you. That is exactly what I mean by the transformation which will lift the more spiritually advanced of the human race out of the ages of material man into the age of cosmic man. And that also is the reason why you should know the invisible universe of God's still light even more abundantly than you can sense the two lights of opposed pressures which constitute the sensed electric universe of divided motion. Likewise, that is the reason why I am taking this simple example of a heartstring to demonstrate how a living, dying body emerges from the seeming nothingness of space to manifest life, and disappear into it to manifest death. The sound which emerges from the silent harpstring is as much a physical body as your body is. It is a series of light waves, just as your body is a series of light waves. The sound issuing from one plucking of a harpstring may have hundreds of separate lives, all reincarnations of each other in a few seconds of time. The fact that your present body has a time cycle of 80 or more years instead of 1,000th of a second makes you feel that your body is very different from a body like the sound of a harpstring, and that fact makes you lose all sense of cosmic perspective. You are willing to admit, as a scientific fact, that a body of sound lives, dies, and lives again 1,000 times in 1 second, but you have much confusion in comprehending the inevitability of your own repetition of body. You will more fully comprehend the reincarnation principle as inevitable law when you fully comprehend that every idea of mind, without exception, is always manifested by a countless series of bodies which continually change their patterns to conform to the changing images of changing thoughts. If eternal repetition, or reincarnation if you wish to call it that, is the one most inviolate law of all creating things, why should you think that it does not apply to you? As one step in the unfolding of your greater comprehension of timelessness in the undivided universe, which I am trying to make your foundation for stronger living, I beg that you will study the diagram which fully illustrates the creation of 100 reincarnated bodies of one idea in 1 second, or even 1 fraction of a second. You think of these hundreds of bodies as vibrations, yet you would not think of your present life as but one just unit of vibration of millions of years in duration instead of 1 fraction of a second. I would like to have you to begin to think of your body that way, and as the timed manifestation of an idea which is eternal and timeless. I would like to have you elevate your consciousness to the level of full awareness of yourself as the universal presence, the universal being, rather than think of yourself as a body which has a name, an address, and a personality. As awareness of being in you unfolds, the sense of individuality will disappear just as one tone of a harp string loses its separateness in the wholeness of the Master's symphony. That is the way Cosmic Man of Tomorrow will think of himself. That is the way I want you to think of yourself. When you think of yourself as one individual unit of creation, you are but that one unit, struggling for survival and for self-interest among the countless other individual units. When you think that way, you are weak, for your desires are self-centered, and the world will not enrich you with its glory nor its bounty, for you are not enriching it. When your desires are for the whole, and when you know that you are the whole, then only are you strong. A new race of men are coming into being, a race of men who will be strong through having learned how to lose their bodies to find their soul in the universal soul. End of lesson.